Today I've got 14 quick tips for older beginner guitar players. Let's get into it. The first one is be patient with yourself. When you're learning anything, it takes a long period of time, but if you're older, you generally may have forgotten these types of things. But think about like when you're a child. I've got a 3-year-old girl and she's learning to hold a pen, draw and write her letters of her name, and that takes time. It's repetition and repetition. It's the same application and process with guitar, so keep playing over and over again, trying to do better than you did last time, and things will start to make more sense. Buy a well-adjusted guitar with lighter gauge strings. So whether you buy a cheap one, expensive one, a second-hand one or a brand new one, always look to try and change the action on the guitar so the strings are kind of closer to the fretboard that don't buzz. You could do this yourself if you want to. I've got an article on my blog which will teach you how to do it step by step, or you could take it to your guitar shop and they can do it for about $50 to $100 US. That way you know that when you come to play with it, your guitar's set up personally for you in the best way it can be, and it's not going to put you off with the strings either being too thick and hurting your fingers, or having to press down so far that over time it's just going to become frustrating. Choose songs to suit your level of ability. So when you first start, there's this kind of feeling that you want to learn all these great songs that you've grown up with, and this huge repertoire of songs that you're interested in, and you'll find days and days where songs just pop into your head and you think, oh, I'd love to learn that. And some of these songs might be way further ahead than we are at the moment, and it's a good idea to challenge yourself, of course, but often these more complicated songs have simpler versions of them. I'm learning guitar through the Justin Guitar beginner course. It's free, and on there he has his own songs list and he organises those by stage. So as you go through, you can pick one that's applicable to you at that point in time, and it makes things a lot easier to get your head round, your fingers round, and generally feel good about your progress with playing guitar. So I'd look at that and make sure that's an important part of your learning process. Practice 5 minutes a day to start building a habit. At first your fingers are going to hurt, and so 5 minutes is going to seem like enough, to be honest with you, in the first week, 2 weeks. But it's all about creating a habit. So if you're doing it 5 minutes one day and then waiting a week before you play another 5 minutes, that's not going to help you. But if you do it 5 minutes every day or 4 or 5 days a week, then you're starting to build that consistency, and over time your fingers obviously will get more accustomed to the strings and the build up calluses, and then you'll be able to play for longer. Buy a guitar stand or wall mount. I've got children, so I've got a wall mount and a guitar stand, but generally put it more on the wall mount because obviously if the kid's going to knock it over and it's your prize guitar. But the real reason behind doing all of this is so that it's always there, so you get to see it. And if you've hopefully bought a nice guitar that inspires you to play, you're going to want to pick it up anyway. But if it's easily accessible, then job done. You're going to be closer to picking it up, and you're always thinking about it. It's in your mind, you see it, and it means that you can probably pick it up more and create the habit. Cut to the chase, and what I mean by this is practice efficiently. So it's all about practicing your weaknesses. So I'm going through a course at the moment, and I'd urge you to take a structured form of learning, whatever you choose to do. But when you are working through it, make a note of the things that you really struggle with, because often those things are the ones that we want to avoid and just play the things we know. But that's not how you progress, and so you've got to make sure that you cut to the chase, it were, and say, this is where I'm weak at, let's practice that until it isn't a weakness anymore. Next point is structured learning. So make sure that you pick something that's structured, whether or not it's with a guitar teacher or it's online. There's a whole host of places to learn, but it's all about having a step-by-step progression. Obviously you're going to have different musical interests, and there's things that will influence what you learn, but in terms of how you go about doing that, you need some kind of direction, and that direction comes from someone who's got a lot of experience. So seek something that's structured, and you put yourself on the best position to succeed. My next point is, if you've picked a course, like an online course like I've done, stick with it until you've completed that part of the course. For example, myself, I'm just coming to the end of the Justin Guitar beginner course, and then I'll be looking to perhaps try something new, whether that's guitar tricks or whether I've gone to the intermediate stage of Justin Guitar. Either way, I've stuck with that first portion until I've completed it and felt good about my progress. Number 9, toughen up your fingers when you're away from the guitar, and this particularly applies to the early stages of learning guitar. So what I found was, I bought one of these, which is a finger exerciser. I'll put a link in the descriptions below if you're interested. It builds up that finger strength pretty quickly. I found it really useful. I used it when I was at work, so it could be good for you. Also, if you're using a pick and you're starting to learn with a pick, one of these I've just come into contact with, and this is called a Pick Ninja. It's effectively a sleeve for the guitar pick. I don't think everybody needs one of these, but I'm just saying if you've got struggle with grip strength and you want some kind of something a bit more substantial in your hand, then this would be certainly something to use and gives you that confidence when you're strumming. Next one, you could try a wider neck guitar. So this is a wider neck guitar, slightly wider than the average. This is a Seagull S6. I flashed the dimensions up of a kind of an average one versus the Seagull. It's not a lot bigger, but it helps with the placement of your fingers. For some people who've got really small hands, this might not be an option. But if you've got a normal sort of bigger hand, then you might find it quite easy. Well, slightly easier to use. Alternatively, you could use like a classical guitar. They have a wider neck. Obviously the sound will be slightly different, but it's another option you could try. The other thing that you could use to ease the finger pain is to use a CAPO or CAPO. Wherever you place this, it creates the 0 fret. So currently, obviously, this is 0 here, this is 1, and so forth. But if you put this down, say what is traditionally the 3rd fret, now the next one becomes 1. So you can play the same song, but it'll be obviously slightly higher pitch. But what you're actually doing is making it easier for your fingers, because the strings, the closer they get to kind of the 12th fret, they get closer to the fretboard itself, so it's got less distance and you don't have to push down as hard, so it can actually make it easier on your fingers, which is a really good thing if you struggle to be able to push down and it's hurting them. Next one is keep your nails short on your fretting hand. This way you build up consistency. Remember, you're using your finger pads to push the strings down, not your nails. If you use your nails, and sometimes they're longer than others because you cut them, then you're getting inconsistency. You want to use your finger pads, so keep those nails short and it will improve your playing. My next point is tell your teacher what you want to learn. So if you're using a teacher, a guitar instructor, someone to teach you how to play guitar physically in person, then tell them what you want to learn. Don't be afraid to. You've got particular musical taste that you're interested in, and that's what encouraged you to pick the guitar up in the first place. So obviously there will be elements of practice that aren't specific to what you like and what you want to do, but it's all about developing yourself. But at the same time, you need to be playing and practicing things that you really want to learn. The next one is about keeping noise down at night. So if you're worried about waking anyone else up in their house or building or wherever you are, an electric guitar doesn't obviously have that acoustic resonance that an acoustic guitar has, so you won't hear it as much. You can also get mini amplifiers. I'll flash one up now. These are great, and you plug these into your electric guitar and then you put your headphones in them, and then you can still hear an amplified version of what you're playing, and you don't wake anyone else up. So that's it. That's my 14 tips. If you've got any others, put them in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.